Welcome to my channel, guys. My name is James. So before we get going today, be sure to hit that like button down below, subscribe, and turn that notification bell on for more videos. Now, this series of videos actually started with my video of breaking the chicken down, which if you would like to see, I'll leave a link in the description down below where I made a very delicious chicken stock as well. So I'm going to take half the chicken stock for this video, and I'm going to reduce this for the risotto a little later on. So as you can tell, there's a lot of mise en place, or a lot of ingredients that we're going to be using for today. And this is going to be more of a how many things can I do in the day instead of actually trying to show step by step, because it's just too many things. First, we're going to start with the chicken roulade. And first I'm going to get a pot on. I'm going to drop a stick of butter in, and I'm going to wilt the spinach. A little bit of salt as well. After the spinach has been wilted, I'm going to dry it off because you want to remove any residual water from it. This is important, otherwise it's going to make the chicken very watery. So now to make the chicken roulade, I'm just going to clean off the edges. I'm going to take off any extra veins, any sinew, anything such as this, and any extra skin. Now there are a few ways to do this. First, we're going to butterfly it, and I'm going to open it up, not completely, but just enough to where it's mostly flat. Now you can take a Ziploc bag if you want, and either a pot or a pan or a mallet and flatten the chicken, or you can do what I'm doing, and I'm just going to make smaller incisions, continuously opening up and spreading the meat. It's one option or the other. Either method will work. Then I'm going to take my clear film, and for this it's important. You want to take it out of the box. You're going to pull it out and you're going to fold it once or twice. The reason for doing this is to make the film a little stronger, because we're going to apply a lot of pressure to this, and if you don't do this, it can tear very easily. I'm going to lay the chicken breast on my cutting board, and I'm going to season it with salt and pepper. Now, since we're using jamon serrano today, I'm not going to put salt on the inside because it's not really necessary, because the ham is salty. And I'm also going to add a little bit of feta cheese, and then I'm going to add a little bit of the spinach as well. You want to lay everything out as nice as possible, and then you're going to leave a portion of the chicken on the bottom free. That way it'll be easier to roll while we're making it. It's like rolling a cigar, more or less. You're just going to take the plastic, push it over, roll into a little ball, and then I'm also going to pull the plastic back just to make sure that there are no little gaps or anything that I missed, and to straighten the skin out, because I want to keep the skin on this. So roll as tightly as you can without breaking the plastic. And then once you've rolled a few times, you can take your knife to cut the film. Then I'm going to roll again to pinch off the sides. And here's a little kitchen trick. You're going to fold the sides, and you're going to take a portion of the film and you're going to roll again. But you have to fold the sides underneath and then re-roll this with another layer of film on. And this will help keep everything together. It's either this, or you have to make a knot in the ends, which with a little piece of film like this is not that easy. So this is another little trick that we use. So since we're going to try to sous vide today without a proper sous vide machine and without a cryovac machine to take out the air in the plastic bag, we're going to double bag it with a Ziploc bag, and I'm going to roll it and try to take out as much air as physically possible. Then I'm going to get a pot of water on, and we're going to bring it up to 65 centigrade. This is the perfect temperature to cook chicken breasts. Now what we're going to do first is we're going to bring the chicken up to temperature in the water at 65 centigrade, and then we're going to finish it in the oven. So turn your oven on. I'm going to turn mine on about at 100 centigrade, more or less. Everyone's oven is different, so you need to keep an eye on this and monitor it if you want to try this at home. And it would be a good idea too to get a little oven thermometer, as I have here, just so you can keep an eye on the actual oven temperature. Now, as this is cooking, I'm going to take the butternut squash, and we're going to make the first of our two purees. I'm just going to cut it in half. I'm going to take off the skin, and I'm going to break this down into smaller pieces to help cook it a little faster. The smaller the pieces are, the faster they cook. And if you would like a detailed recipe on how to make a butternut squash risotto, I made one several months ago. That is an excellent video on how to make a risotto step by step. So now I'm going to get a pot on the stove and throw some shallots in with a little bit of oil. And I'm going to saute the butternut squash and I'm going to reduce it. I'm also going to add a little bit of thyme. And I'm just going to keep cooking and cooking and cooking this until everything has broken down. I'm also going to add a splash of white wine to give it a little more flavor. And I'm going to season it with a little bit of salt. So once your butternut squash looks more or less like this, after you've been cooking, reducing and breaking it down, I'm going to throw a stick of butter in along with a little bit of heavy cream. And since my heavy cream is too thick, I'm going to add a little bit of milk as well, whole milk. And I'm just going to blend this into a puree. I'm using obviously my little hand wand, but if you have a Thermomix or an actual blender, then you can get a much better consistency than with the little handheld. And this puree is going to be the base for our risotto. So now we're going to make some confit shallots. It's super easy and quick little garnish. I'm just going to clean all the little shallots. I'm going to slice them up. And I'm going to Bernoise them. And as you can tell, if once you get a little better, you can do like 2, 3, or 4 at a time. So it speeds up the process. I'm going to get another pot on and I'm going to add a little oil to the pan and then I'm going to add the shallots in. You want the oil above the line of the shallots and you want to cook this just before the boiling point. We do not want to boil. To confit is to cook under the boiling temperature. So it's slow cooking. Now it's time for our second puree, as if we didn't have enough things going on at the same time. So now we're going to make our cauliflower puree. I haven't actually made a video with this before, but I have made this at least 1,000 times. Now there are multiple versions on how to make cauliflower puree. You can either make a white one with cooking it in milk, or what we're going to be doing today is going to have more of a nutty flavor to it, more like a hazelnut type of flavor. So it's a brown cauliflower puree. So I'm going to take my head of cauliflower. I'm going to break off a few florets for garnish a little later on. We always try to do 2 things at the same time, to save time. And then I'm just going to take the rest of my cauliflower and I'm going to break it down as small as possible. There's one thing that I learned when making this. The smaller the pieces are, the faster they're going to cook. So if you have a food processor or a Robot, put the cauliflower inside and blend it until it's a sandy consistency. Then you're going to take a pot, you're going to put butter or oil in the bottom of the pan, and you're going to cook this until it turns a dark color. You can also add a little bit of salt, but not too much because this will be a very strong flavored puree. And once the cauliflower has turned this nice brownish color, I'm then going to take a stick of butter, some heavy cream. Again, because this cream is a little too thick, I'm going to add a little bit of whole milk, and I'm going to blend it with a hand wand. Now, one quick tip. Anytime that you're making a puree, the actual base for it has to be hot. Otherwise, you will not get a smooth puree when you add the butter to it. And it looks like our chicken is done. The timer just went off. I took it out of the oven. I double checked the water temperature to make sure it's at about 65. And then I also tested one of the chicken roulades to make sure the internal temperature, the core temp, is at about 65. And it's a little over, 1 degree over, but that's okay since this is not a very precise method of making a sous vide dish. So at least it works. So now we're going to blanch some vegetables. You're going to get a pot of water on, add a bunch of salt to it because this brings out the flavor. And while you weren't looking, I broke down a little bit of the cauliflower as well as some broccoli. And here's a pro tip. If you want to use one pot to blanch all your vegetables, you want to blanch the white vegetables first and then the colored vegetables such as broccoli. Otherwise, it will turn the cauliflower green. Just to keep this in mind. Now you're going to cook these and put a knife or a toothpick through them just to check them. And when they're done, you're going to drop them in a little bowl of ice water to stop the cooking process. Then for the mushrooms, I'm just going to quarter them. I'm going to get my saute pan. I'm going to put a little oil in the pan and I'm going to mark these. You want a nice golden brown color on them on each side. And of course, add a little bit of salt as well. to season them. Now, if only you could see how many things I had going on at the same time for this video. Now we're going to make the risotto. I'm going to take a portion of the confit shallots that I already confit. I'm going to throw them in the pan, and then I'm going to add the arborio rice to the pot, and I'm going to saute the rice, or I'm going to cook the rice a little bit before we add any wine to it. This is one important step. It helps, well, amalgamate the rice. So after a few minutes of cooking the rice, I'm going to add a splash of white wine, and once the wine has reduced by about half or a little more, then I'm going to add the chicken stock that we also reduced, which has more flavor in it. Now, I've made a few videos, as I said before, on how to make a risotto, so I'll leave the links down below, but they will take more or less 20 minutes to make from scratch when you start from scratch. But if you actually take your time to make one, you can have an excellent dish. Now, after the rice has started to cook, after you can tell that it's still al dente, but it's starting to absorb the chicken stock, I'm then going to add my puree. I'm going to add a decent amount to it because this already has a little bit of butter in it and cream, so it'll help emulsify the mix. And then once you're at the end to finish the risotto, I'm going to throw a stick of butter in, well, a cube of butter, and then I'm going to throw some Parmesan cheese in it as well. I'm going to leave this off to the side, and now we're going to work on our little chicken, what's called an oyster. This piece comes from the lower back portion of the chicken carcass, and I'm going to cook these more or less like I cook quail. So I'm going to cook them on one side, skin side down, after I trim the skin. High heat, oil in the pan, and once we plate, I'm going to heat these up again to finish them off, and that's it. Then I'm also going to remove the wrap from our chicken roulades, and I'm going to do the same. I'm going to mark them and put some color on them before we cut. So you want to make sure that you have a hot pan, oil in the pan, you mark them on all sides, and then you're going to place it on the cutting board and cut with a nice knife. You're going to cut thin slices. And after you see that we have everything ready, absolutely everything to plate, now we're going to plate. This is what we call go time in the kitchen, especially for banqueting. So I'm going to plate my risotto, and you can plate a risotto many different ways. If you want the little piece of chicken to stand a little higher on the plate, you need to make it a little thicker by adding more cheese and reducing it a little bit. You can also add a little bit of mascarpone to thicken it up. Now I'm going to put the little chicken oyster in the middle. I'm then going to put some shallots on the outside, a little puree in the middle, and then a little bit of broccoli as well for garnish. And that's it. This is a simple little dish. It's tasty, but very simple. So if you would like me to show you how to plate more dishes, then write in the comments down below and I can help you. I'm going to take our cauliflower puree. I'm going to use this as a base for the dish, and then I'm going to place the chicken roulade in the middle, and then I put the rest of our butternut squash puree in the little squeeze bottle, so it makes it easier to put little dots on the plate to help garnish. And then of course I finish it off with all the little vegetables that I grilled and sauteed, and then I added a little bit of the reduced chicken stock. I didn't have any demi sauce or anything like that, but normally you would add a little bit of demi, and that's it. It finishes the plate. It's a very, very tasty little plate, and a very filling plate as well, since I made this more for 2 people instead of 1. Be sure to head over to Jim and Matt's channels as well, like their videos and give them support as well. And just to let you know, Jim and I, since we live so close to each other, we're going to team up and actually start doing live videos soon. So it'll be much easier for me to be able to teach any of you, or if you have any questions, it'll be much easier for me to explain than it is now, because this is pre-recorded. So definitely be sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and hit the bell notification down below so you don't miss any of these videos. Anyway guys, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you guys again very soon. Take care.